So welcome. This is the third episode of Princeton Startup TV. I'm Arman, and we have Adam Goldstein from Hipmunk here. So let me quickly introduce Adam. Adam is the CEO and co-founder of Hipmunk, the awesome flight search engine, which we'll talk about. Before Hipmunk, Adam was the CTO and co-founder of booktour.com. He holds a bachelor's degree in computer science and mechanical engineering from MIT. He was North American debating champion in 2010, the youngest author at Wired. If you guys read Apple's script, The Missing Manual, he wrote it at the age of 16. So, hi Adam.
Hi there.
Thanks for being here.
Absolutely, thanks for having me.
So, what is Hipmunk?
Hipmunk is a site and a mobile app that takes the agony out of searching for travel. And basically, we figured that it doesn't make sense to look through pages and pages of results, whether you're searching for a flight or for a hotel. We want to make it really easy to visualize your options so that you can understand the trade-offs between them.
So, how did you start Hipmunk? When was it, and what was the process which led to the creation?
So I've always been interested in startups, and I knew that I wanted to start a company when I graduated, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And it was only through the debate team that I started realizing that there was this huge pain point. You know, I was booking all the travel for our team. We were traveling all over the country and all over the world.
What sites did you guys use?
Kayak, Expedia, all the standard ones.
Yeah.
And I found myself spending entire afternoons searching for flights and hotels, and I thought, this isn't me being bad at it. It's these sites being bad at helping me do it the way that I want. And so when I got near graduation, I called up my friend Steve Huffman, who was one of the founders of Reddit, and I said, "Hey Steve, would you be interested in working on this project?" And he said, "Sure." I mean, that's a simplification. It took some convincing, but
So that was May 2010.
yeah, right. Well, it was right around the end of the school year. So yeah, March, April, May of 2010.
So that was May 2010. You decided to pursue this idea. So did you apply to YC before that, I guess?
No, so once I knew that Steve was going to be joining me, that's when we started reaching out to YC. And both of us had known Paul Graham from before. Steve, because Reddit was in the first summer of Y Combinator, and me because I just kind of hung around YC events for a while. And
in
Paul,
Boston or
yeah, both in Boston and out here. And Paul Graham was actually the person that introduced me to my co-founder at Booktour.
Oh, very nice.
Chris Anderson, who's the editor of Wired. So we both knew him. We both decided to work together. We went to Paul. We said, would you be interested? And he said, sure.
How was the YC experience like?
Oh, it was great. Yeah. YC is a great experience, especially for motivating you. I think people talk about the introductions that it gets you and the investors and all that stuff, and that's definitely true. But I think that one of the most powerful parts of Y Combinator is much like when you go to a university and you're surrounded by a bunch of smart people who are really motivated and interested in what you're working on. Y Combinator is like that, but you're filled with it's filled with a bunch of incredibly smart people who are incredibly motivated, who are working on startups and just making amazing progress every week. And so you just feel like you got to keep up. You got to make sure that your product is ready to launch by the time that you're doing your demos. Yeah. And if you don't, I imagine it feels very bad. But if you do, it feels great because you just look back and you say, "Man, I can't believe that we actually did that in 2 months."
Yeah. So before joining YC, you kind of even didn't have what they call minimal viable product, right? So you came there and then started working on it, and in August, I guess, you presented the first prototype.
That's right. Yeah. So actually, we were fairly unique. Historically, Y Combinator's encouraged people to come in with just an idea and try it and see if it works and so on. More recently, a bigger percentage of the companies within Y Combinator actually have a product already or have even launched. Some of them have even raised money already. So we were kind of going at old school by coming in with just an idea. And we spent the first month or so of Y Combinator really iterating through what we wanted it to look like, and then the remainder of the time building it. And so by the time demo day came around, we not only had a prototype, but we'd actually launched the site publicly.
Very cool. So because I looked at a couple of YC companies, it looked like the most successful ones out there had already traction before applying to YC. So I think Hipmunk is kind of an outlier. Do you feel like that? Or
I think I think that it might just be a small sample size. If you're only looking at one summer, lots of the startups within our summer had that hadn't written any code beforehand have done great afterwards. I think it's normal to expect that if a company has traction a year in, that they might have traction 2 years later. So there's sort of it's not an apples to apples comparison,
right.
But there are lots of very, very successful companies that have come out of YC that didn't have anything but an idea going in.
So you guys had conversation with Paul every week, or how do you work? So
yeah, exactly. So we went down to Mountain View, which is where they have their weekly meetings every week. And I don't think we talked to Paul himself every week, but we talked to other startups and other people who came to speak and all that kind of stuff.
How did the Hipmunk look like when you guys launched? So
the site?
What were the features? What was the core product you guys had when you launched?
Well, so thanks to the internet, you can actually see the screenshots of Hipmunk when we launched. Yeah. And not even the Wayback, just the press that we got on August 17th, 2010. And the site, it was like nothing that most people had ever seen. But when we look back at it, we think, man, that was so ugly. There was nothing polished looking about it. It was a very simple version. And the first version just had flights, and it just it didn't even have all the airlines. It just had some of them. If you wanted to book a ticket, you had to go to Orbitz, all those sorts of things. So that was, it was enough to get started.
But it already had Gantt charts.
Yeah.
Right?
It
already. And
you would have no trouble recognizing the similarities between then and now. You would just think, man, they really didn't care about the way it looked back then.
But yeah, I mean, Reid Hoffman, you guys probably remember the quote, like if you are not embarrassed by your first version, you launched too late. So yeah, that's perfectly acceptable in the startup world. And kind of off topic really quick. So for example, the founder of Epit, one deal aggregator site we featured in the previous episode, he came up with a name by running a Python script with consonant, vowel, consonant sequence, and then just manually went through it and checked with the domain availability. How did you come about the name?
The name? Well, we were having trouble finding a domain name that was available, especially one that had anything to do with traveling or whatever. We gave it probably a week's try and registered some awful domains that no one would have liked. And then I explained this problem to my girlfriend one day, and she suggested that we come up with the name of a small animal, because then we'd be able to get a cute logo. And I thought, that's a great idea. So I started typing in misspellings of small animal names, and Hipmunk was available. Yeah, that was it.
Very cool. And now it's a killer brand.
Yeah, it's a great brand. Great brand. Yeah.
So for those who haven't used Hipmunk, what is the reason behind? Why do they need to care? Why do they need to switch?
Well, Hipmunk is not for everyone. And this is something that a lot of people don't realize. When you go to Expedia, when you go to Kayak, or when you go to one of those sites, they're very obviously trying to cater to everyone. They've got so many check boxes and sliders and pop-up windows and all these things. And that's
non-stop flights.
Right, exactly. And that's not our thing. We very specifically believe that we're there to help people who are smart travelers, who know that they would not, pay. They wouldn't take an extra 2 connections on their flight in order to save $5. Like, our users are not that user. So when you come to Hipmunk, we've already done a lot of the work for you. We've hidden the flights that we think you wouldn't take because they're just worse than other flights. We've sorted them not by cheapest but by least agonizing, which is our proprietary metric of amenities, price and number of stops and layovers and all those things. And on the hotel side, we help you figure out which neighborhood to stay in, because we think it's really important that you not only stay in a reasonably nice hotel or whatever your budget is, but that it's in a good location. So we've built these databases of points of interest for all over the world. And so we can say, here's where there are a bunch of restaurants, here's where there are a bunch of nightclubs, here's where there are a bunch of strip clubs, whatever it is that you want. That's how we help our customers save time.
Do you guys use Airbnb business?
Yeah. So we're the only site that lists Airbnb alongside hotels, and that's another really nice feature when you're thinking about where to stay.
You initially relied on Orbit's data, but then I think last year signed a deal with ITA. How did it work out for you guys?
Yeah, it worked out great. I mean, ITA is a great partner for us. They've got amazing technology and incredibly smart people there. Since then, they've been acquired by Google, which hasn't really impacted us in any meaningful way. All the people that we've worked with there are still there, and we continue to pull data from them every month. So overall, it's a pretty good experience.
So currently you're already owning the kind of the data for search, right? Is the next move for Hipmunk to own the booking part of the equation as well, or?
I would not say the next move. No, certainly not. I mean, I don't even know if that's something that we'll ever do, because there's so many problems associated with being a booking agent. You have to have
contracts with all these companies.
Yeah, well, we have to have contracts anyway, but you basically have to be at the receiving end of everyone's hatred. You're on the receiving end of the customer's hatred because, if they need to change their ticket, they need to call you on the phone. It's just a total mess. And you're also on the receiving end of the hatred from the airlines and hotels who are tired of paying these huge fees to the booking agents. So our philosophy is give our customers choices of where to book. We want to let them book directly through the airline or the hotel if possible, and if not, then through one of the travel agencies. But we specialize in helping people find the right option. The transactional piece is a totally different game.
Yeah, very YC user focused.
Yeah.
What is so at this point I use Hipmunk a lot, and the power of Hipmunk is the amazing user interface, the Gantt charts, the fact that I can just, it's sort of selecting the intervals like I have to do in all this traditional sites. I can just quickly type deck 10, deck 12. I can use all these abbreviations I accustomed to, and I can see the nice visualization of all the possible choices. What is do you guys see anything else besides user interface you are proud of?
Absolutely, yeah. So we think of it in terms of the overall user experience. And the interface is the most obvious thing when you come to the site because it's visual, and that's unique in travel. But part of a user experience also means getting the best access to inventory. And so that's, when we talk about Airbnb alongside hotels, or Amtrak alongside airlines, those are something that no other company does. And in fact, in the case of Amtrak, something that no other company can do right now because we've got a sort of exclusive arrangement with them. That means that we can give customers options that they wouldn't find anywhere else. We can make them make more intelligent decisions, and that's something that they'll really, really like and come back over and over again as a result of.
So I guess I haven't seen that part of the Hipmunk, the train, so do you kind of envision Hipmunk as this multi-transport search engine? Like if let's say I want to go from Boston to New York, maybe the best way is not a plane, but a bus.
But a bus or something. Yeah, potentially. We want to be very keenly aware of what our customers actually want. And a big chunk of Hipmunk's customers are business travelers who are really, really excited about trains. Buses, not so much. The other thing is showing results when they're relevant. So we show Amtrak on short and mid-range routes. So if you search for Boston to DC, we'll show you trains. But if you search for Boston to San Francisco, we're not going to show you trains. And so the trick with any form of transportation is, what's the chance that someone actually wants to take a look at this? And if it's not a reasonably high chance, then we're just not going to include it because it pushes off the front page or off the top of the page the results that people actually do want to look at.
What is the technology stack of Hipmunk? I mean, it's just for software engineers out there.
Sure. Yeah, so we run the site on, Python runs the back end. We've got, most of the site runs on Tornado, the web framework, and we've got just boatloads of JavaScript on the front end. So we don't use any Flash, we don't use anything like that. All of the user interactions that you have, the sliders, the showing and hiding flights, all that is handled on the client side, and that's why it's so fast. So you know, the specifics of the architecture are always under tweaking. You know, we're trying to make things faster and trying to make them more reliable and all that stuff. But that's the high level view.
Right. So, and just going back to the kind of a product, why companies like Southwest and let's say Spirit Air, all these budget airlines, do not provide the data to?
So we have Spirit.
You guys have,
we have Spirit, and we have JetBlue, which Kayak doesn't have. We don't have Southwest, and that's frustrating for everyone in the industry. Basically, the way that the airline industry works is that the airlines have the final say over who gets their data. Certain things are public, like their schedules. Like you can call up the FAA and say go to their website and say, you know, when does this flight leave from Dallas and when does it arrive in New Orleans or whatever, and they'll say, okay, yeah, here's the Southwest flights, but they can't tell you how much it costs, you know, what the whether there are seats available, any of that stuff, and that's all controlled by the airline. So some airlines have decided that they'd rather spend their money on marketing directly to customers, you know, lots of television ads, lots of online ads, lots of all that sort of thing, in order to drive people directly to their website. Whereas most airlines have said it's actually cheaper and more sensible for us to be listed in these comparison sites so that people can make their own sort of decisions.
So sometimes I use sites like Airfare Watchdog, when I can just give a destination without any particular time interval, and then it just shows me the deals, which is a great way to find pretty cheap fares. Do you guys look into this direction as well? Yeah,
you know, the problem with all of those sites is that they're using data that's not current. Right? They run their searches every night or every hour or whatever it is and say, oh, we found a good deal, and then they send out a bunch of emails, and by the time you go there, often the deal is no longer available.
Right.
Hipmunk specializes in more of the, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to book my ticket. I'm ready to book my hotel. Tell me what the flights are right now or the hotels are right now, and I'm going to book it right now. And that means that there's a much higher level of certainty that what we show you is actually correct.
Right.
So if we can figure out a way to actually surface deals and ensure that they're actually going to be available, then that's really interesting to us. But it would be a sort of a violation of our user experience focus to just say, hey, look, 2 tickets available for New York to San Francisco, and then 2,000 people, you know, try it, and you know, 1998 of them go.
So Groupon getaways is not your.
No, not our thing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What are the kind of features you guys are working on in terms of improving?
Well,
I mean, let's just maybe at least in vague terms.
In a very general sense, the things that we care most about are flights and hotels, and desktop and mobile. Those are the things that we've pushed out so far, and we feel like there's still a lot of work to do to make those great. So on the website, we've added calendar integration, which is really, really cool. So you can actually see which flights fit in your schedule, and you can see which hotels are near meetings that you have or things like that. And on the mobile side, we released an iPhone, an iPad, and an Android app all within the last year. And they're all just for flights at the moment, but we're going to be including hotels and vacation rentals and all that stuff going forward. So the people often ask, you know, are you guys going to add rental cars? Are you going to add cruises?
Yes.
The answer is, you know, probably someday, but for now we're focused on those key pieces: flight, hotel, web, and mobile.
How does the feature prioritization work in Hipmunk? So I guess you have, as I just described, user feedback and some brainstorming within the team, and you have like 100 different ideas you need to work on. How do you figure out the one you need to focus?
So we look mostly to ourselves. We say, what are the things that we currently experience frustration with when we're using Hipmunk? And that's what motivated the calendar feature, it's what motivated the hotel feature, and all that kind of stuff. With user feedback, we pay attention to it, but we were a little bit skeptical because often customers ask for things thinking that they're going to solve a problem, but actually you should just think about the problem instead of thinking about a particular solution. So to give you an example, you know, when we were coming up with the idea of Hipmunk, before we'd actually built anything, we would say to people, we're building a better version of Kayak. And people would say, oh, but I love Kayak. And we'd say, well, what do you like about Kayak? And they'd say, oh, I like the fact that, you know, I can filter my flights by nonstop or by, you know, whatever it is. And we would think, okay, so the real problem here isn't that that, or the real thing they like isn't that they can filter by non-stops, it's that the site makes it easy to see the non-stops.
Yep.
The filtering isn't the benefit, it's the ability to see. So that's why when we rolled out Hipmunk, we rated non-stops more than Kayak does. So you don't need to filter them. I mean, you can if you want, but we just list non-stops higher up in the list than Kayak does. And so we listen to user feedback, but we use it as sort of a way to figure out what it is that people are experiencing frustration with, rather than guiding specific product decisions.
What were the key lessons you learned in terms of hiring process and management in the last 1.5 years?
Well, I'd say it's too early to say for sure, because a year ago I was still an engineer, Steve and I working together, kind of thing. I mean, since we've grown to 11 people, which is where we are now, the things that I've been learning about on an ongoing basis are things like what's the right level of communication. It's not, everyone's not an engineer. You can't just sort of say, do that, and then expect that they're going to test it and it's going to come with this thing and it'll have its unit tests and it's going to work. For things that are more around business development or for marketing, you have to have a more conversational approach. What are the things that we want to achieve? What are the ways that we can achieve it? Let's try out some stuff. It's a more informal kind of relationship. Similarly, there's a balance between over and under communication. And most companies, especially at our scale, I think err on the side of under communication. Once they reach 8, 9, 10 people, they say, well, we can't keep everyone up to date on everything because it would be too distracting. So the trick is figuring out how do you make sure that everyone knows what everyone else is doing, so as to avoid duplication of effort or whatever, while simultaneously making sure that people don't get distracted too much by that. That's still something we're figuring out.
So do you guys have weekly meetings, really short, just to give an overview of what you've been working on the last week?
Yeah. So we have regular meetings to catch up, and there's a question as to how much that scales too, right? I mean, if we were 50 people, I don't think anyone would want to sit through each person talking for a minute about what they're working on or whatever. So weekly updates, team updates, so people meeting with their own team and then letting everyone else know sort of the high points of that meeting. Direct kind of like office layout is really important, making sure that everyone who needs to regularly talk to someone else is within earshot of them, so they can just yell a question instead of typing an email. All that kind of stuff. It's something that everyone talks about, but like company communication can be just such a huge distraction or advantage depending on how you do it.
As a CEO, do you still code?
Not on the product. No, I stepped away from working on the product about a year ago. I still write a little bit of SQL code to run analytics kind of stuff, but that's it.
And I watched you guys' presentation at one of the seminars last year, and you guys mentioned that you were in the process of filing patents. How do you go with the user experience in terms of
right? So yeah, I mean that's
still in the process.
That's not something that we're particularly proud of, right? And we don't think that patents are a great thing for software innovation, but unfortunately, all of the big companies use them to crush startups, and so it's sort of a defense mechanism. You say, okay, we're going to file for these things so that if someone sues us for patent infringement, we can countersue them, and then we settle, and that's it.
Yep.
That's the way that the game is played, at least for now. So we file not around the interface per se, although we've done some design patents, but we file more around the way that the site works, how it is that we're able to give instantaneous results that are instantly sortable and that we can take into account customers' preferences on the fly and all those sorts of things, which are things that no other site currently does in travel. So those are the things that we look at, and we, whenever we're thinking of a new product, we say to our lawyers, hey, is this something that you guys think is interesting? Is it novel? Have you ever seen it before? And if they say, oh yeah, then we do it again.
And so for aspiring entrepreneurs out there, do you have any book and blogs recommendations? Like something from your RSS reader, I guess. Some blogs you enjoy reading, some books you recently read?
Yeah, I'm pretty boring on on all those fronts. I don't read a ton of sites. I read Hacker News all the time.
Yeah.
Just to stay on top of what's going on in the startup world. I read a bunch of travel industry specific blogs just so I stay on top of what's going on there, and general news like Reuters and whatever. On the book front, let's see, what are some good books?
Apple Script.
Yeah, Apple Script, The Missing Manual is a good one. Yeah, I try not to read too much. Actually, I can't think of the last time that I read a book about programming or about startups. I probably will again, but I've been reading just sort of things on
fiction.
No, not necessarily fiction. Just things that I find interesting. So I read a book, a great book about water in the West, like how it is that all these cities that have popped up, like San Francisco, managed to exist when they didn't have access to fresh water.
Have you read Omnivore's Dilemma?
No, I'm a vegetarian, but I have not read that. So I just kind of take recommendations from my friends.
Chris Gilbo has this book about like enjoying traveling, and I guess 4-hour work week is another.
Yeah. I mean, I'm familiar with the concept, but I haven't read the book.
Very cool. And so the last question is really broad. What is your vision for flight search space and Hipmunk specifically?
Yeah, well, so we think much broader than flight search. That's where we got started, and that's where most of our customers are most familiar, but we think about travel search in general. And our goal is to take the agony out of the entire experience. So we don't want to just say we're going to help people find flights and hotels. We want to help them find trains and vacation rentals and eventually cars and packages and cruises. And we want to do it in the US and outside the US, and we want to do it on desktop, on tablets, and on mobile. So all those different dimensions. Once we've built all that stuff, then we can comfortably say, hopefully, that we've built the best experience, and people come to Hipmunk because it saves them time, it saves them effort, and perhaps saves them money.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
That was Princeton Startup TV episode number 3. Go check out Hipmunk.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Adam.
Sure.
Yeah.